Back on another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined by Giants cornerback Paulson Adebo. Paulson, how are you, man?
Good, how are you doing?
So, first regular season game as a member of the Giants in this defense. When you went back and you looked, how do you think it went?
Yeah, man, I think there was a lot to learn from. Obviously, we didn't end up getting the win, but I think when you look overall as a team, there were a couple plays that we wish we could have got back. And so we go back and we looked at things we could have done better, things that we have to improve on, but I think we're feeling good and confident going into week 2.
Now, you got a lot of questions from the media about traveling with Terry McLaurin, and you did see him a lot in that game. I imagine that's going to be a week-to-week thing, right? Depending on the matchup, whether or not you travel, it'll be left and right and how you guys are going to set up those matchups. Yeah,
it just depends on the receivers you're going up against, the kind of scheme they run, how the receivers are being used, if they're in the slot, if they're primarily outside. So all those things, the coaches talk about and we'll talk about and decide what to do from there.
Not even specifically you, but just in terms of how the team is able to approach it. How much does playing a guy like Jaden Daniels impact how you can play your coverage? Because if you play a man against a guy like that, it's, he can run, right? He can gain 20 yards in a scramble. So how much does playing a guy like that impact just how wide and thick your coverage menu can be, given how he can hurt you with your legs?
Yeah, just that added element of him being able to run and be a, prolific runner. It just makes you have to be honest. It makes it 11-on-11 football, right? You have to account for everybody. You have to account for the quarterback's legs. So certain things are a little bit more difficult, naturally.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit too about how pass rush can help the secondary, right? If you guys think the pass rush is going to get there, you can sit on routes, you can anticipate a little bit, right? But if they're mush rushing, trying to contain him rather than get after the quarterback, does that then impact them, which impacts you and kind of just changes the way you have to play defense overall?
Yeah, I think anytime you're going up against a mobile quarterback, you got to be prepared to cover for a little bit longer. You got to be able to, cover the second and third routes, right? If the guy scrambles and, receiver breaks off a route, you have to be prepared to cover the second route. So that's just something that comes with a quarterback that's going to be scrambling and stuff.
Are there things and ways you can only build chemistry in a secondary in regular season games as opposed to what you're doing in training camp and practice? Are there things that you guys need to go through in real game situations to kind of build over the course of the year in addition to what you do in the offseason?
Yeah, I think it just all comes together. Off-season work, training camp, all those things that you're going through, working through difficulties and trials and challenges together. And the more challenges you kind of get through together, the closer you become as a defense, the more you kind of know exactly what somebody would do on a certain play. The communication just keeps getting better and better. So I think in this league, it's just a race to get better, right? From week 1 to week 2, improve and just keep that going on. And I think we're headed in the right direction.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you got to go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know.
But Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
How has this team bounced back after a tough loss? Emotionally, you guys were back on the practice field on Wednesday. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. How has the team bounced back just from an emotional standpoint from that tough loss in week 1?
Yeah, it's a long season. That's a good team that we played, and they did some things and were able to win the game against us. So we came in confident. We're still confident. Still know what we have as a team. Feeling really good about that. So I think just coming back to work, like I said, be objective about the performance. Look at the things that we could have did better.
Of course.
Don't brush it off, you know what I mean? But at the same time, don't make it more than it is. So just look at it for what it is. We lost. Okay, we have to improve on some things. Let's improve and let's get ready to go to Dallas.
When you get where you want to go, what do you want either the personality or the playing style of the secondary specifically to be on this team?
Yeah, I think as a secondary, just, setting the tone, being dominant, having fun out there, flying around, playmaking ability, right? Being able to get the ball and affect the quarterback. All those things are going to help this team as we move forward.
All right, you have 2 games against Dallas, one when you were a rookie in 2021, then you played them in 2024 last year. I'm sure you've started to study them already. Even though Brian Schottenheimer was their offensive coordinator last year, I thought their offense looked very different than it did under Mike McCarthy. As you've started to look at them, how many changes have you seen? How much different is their offense schematically than what you saw in your previous matchups?
Yeah, I played against them last year. It's tough to tell in game 1, right? You don't have that much of a body of work to be able to see. Is something just a one-off, or is that what they're doing going into this year? So as you're studying, you study everything, right? Be honest and make sure that you're, whatever we're playing, ready to read your keys and play your correct technique. So there's not too much as far as tendencies and stuff, right? We can see certain things, but like I said, it's week 1, so you kind of got to be honest and be prepared for everything.
But you know how Dak wants to play quarterback. You've seen him.
Yeah.
He's been in the league for a long time. He's 32 years old, had a lot of success. What is it about Dak and the way he plays quarterback that as a cornerback you have to be aware of and ready for?
Yeah, I think Dak is a really good quarterback. He can make every throw. He can extend plays, right? And so he has everything you need to be a really good quarterback in this league, and that's what we've seen for, the duration of his career. So I think he has all the tools to make you, as a corner, just know that, he knows where to go, right? If you miss, if you miscommunicate or something, he'll be able to find it. So I think just all that we've seen throughout his career makes him somebody that you have to really prepare for.
I feel like he's also a guy that's willing and he wants to push the ball downfield, even when there's not necessarily a ton of separation too, right? So you kind of always have to be ready.
Yeah, I think as a DB, that's, regardless of who you're playing, you're always ready for them to go deep. You're always ready for every route, really. You kind of have to be on alert regardless of who you're playing or whatever, because as we know, all it takes is one play to change the outcome of a game. So you're just always on alert. And like you said, he can make every throw, right? He can throw deep, intermediate, short routes, check out of a play. So all those things he has. And as a DB, you just have to really prepare for everything that he can do. All
right, I'll take the receivers one by one. Let's start with CeeDee Lamb. What makes him a little bit unique in terms of his strengths and how you had to deal with him as a cornerback?
Yeah, CeeDee's, like I said, both of them, honestly, are really good receivers, and they can do everything. They can catch the ball in contested situations. Really good run after the catch. Guys that are looking to score and take a 5-yard route and take it for a long way. So I think you just got to be ready to tackle. You got to be ready to cover them. They can run every route. Good speed on both of them. So a good challenge going into week 2.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help. Make sense of your money with Citizens.
I want to go on one aspect of both guys. CeeDee is a guy that they will move into the slot a lot, right? Why do you think he's a guy that can be effective in the slot when he has a two-way goal and maybe a little bit more room to operate in there?
Yeah, I think, like I just said, with the his ability to run after the catch, right, and get him moving and get him in some of those situations where he has the ball in his hand and he can kind of start to make something shake and prolong a play and get some yards after contact. I think all those things are reasons why you want to kind of get those guys the ball in space.
You're a big physical corner. George Pickens, big physical wide receiver. He's great at the catch point, down the field, catching balls where maybe not necessarily open, but he adjusts well to the ball in the air.
Yeah.
As a corner, when you're taking on a wide receiver like that, what are some things you have to do to prevent some of those contested catches from being completed?
Yeah, I think you got to be ready to play the ball in the air. You got to be ready to be really physical. He's a physical receiver at the catch point. Really disciplined and detailed in your technique, whether you're playing press or you're playing off. So, like you say, he has a really good ability to track the ball down the field and, again, be able to run after the catch. So you got to be prepared for that.
And then finally, their run game, corners obviously have to be very involved in the run game. It seemed like they're using a lot of pullers in that game, a lot of guys coming around. They put guys in motion, use them as lead blockers. What are some of the challenges that you saw in terms of their run game schematically? And they're also using a bunch of different players in the run game as well, including Kevontae Turpin, who's kind of their do-everything guy.
Yeah, they got some good guys. They run hard, running backs and stuff, so you got to be ready to come up and tackle. I think that's kind of every week, you kind of prepare that way and know that if you're not technically sound, right, things can break. So you just, you're ready to play your technique and play to your strengths.
Paulson, good stuff, man. Appreciate the time, dude, and good luck against Dallas.
Thank you, brother.
Paulson Adebo, Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, official bank of the Giants, and the Hackensack Marine Hill Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. We'll see you next time.